Bondadoso eres Dios, tu pasión me enamoró. Gracia merecida que con amor me regaló. Yo debí morir y me salvaste. Siendo un inmundo pecador, me perdonaste. Y ya no me siento solo. Tú lo llenas todo en mí. Ya no me siento solo.
We just finished recording the latest episode about the story of my life, and I appreciate each and every single one of you for your support, for the DMs, for the phone calls. That means that my story touched your life, just like many other stories touch mine. I know that as families, as people, we face many challenges. I want you to keep our family in your prayers at CTLB Studios and the Maldonado family, and we'll pray for yours. But before I let you go, I would like to ask for one special favor. Can you please like and subscribe to this channel so that we can keep producing content like this and sharing people's messages with the world, because we know in that there's healing. Now back to our regularly scheduled program.
He knew where the line was. He always knew. The question was not whether he'd find his way back. The question is what it would cost him to get there. Before we go any further, you need to understand something about the family that raised him. Michael is very much attached to the family that raised him. He especially adores his father and brothers. The state of New Jersey wrote that in the official documentation in 1979. A 4-year-old boy, already so loved that removing him would cause, and I quote, considerable trauma. The Maldonados are dark Hispanics, but are Caucasian. They didn't look like him. They didn't share his blood. They didn't care. This is a story of what they gave him. There are 2 moments about your childhood that tell us about who Juan and Carmen Maldonado really were. The first one, tell me about the screen door.
Okay, so I was about, I want to say 15, but it could have been 16. So I hung out with Khalil's mother. Khalil had not been born yet. And I stayed at her family's house. So I stayed overnight, didn't call home or anything. And I wasn't used to that because we weren't used to staying out. After staying out 2 nights, I decided that it was time to go home. So I had to walk home. It took me about 30 minutes. The whole time I'm just anxious because I don't know what's going to happen when I get home, you know?
Your parents weren't used to you?
No, not at all. Staying out? Please. You must be thinking of some other household.
Right, not a very religious household that you grew up in.
Yeah. So I'm walking home. I'm anxious the whole time, trying to anticipate what's going to happen. I know that I'm not, at that point, I'm not going to get like a whipping or anything like that. It was too big, right? So, but you would definitely get a tongue lashing, okay? That, they didn't spare those when necessary. So I get closer to Euclid Avenue. I get to the corner. Now, just when I thought I was calming myself down, so now my heart sinks into my stomach and like those feelings of almost cringe, nervousness set in. I walk closer to the house. I got the house in view. I zoom in, or I focus on the gate. I open the gate. I come up the steps so I can see the screen door. As I get closer, I notice the front door is open. I said, okay, maybe I can slip in, right? And just, figure it out from there. I go to pull the screen door handle.
And it's locked.
It's locked. Okay. You ever heard that term, you can't outslick the slicker? Now, I don't know why it was locked, because it was locked a lot of the times, because if my mom and dad are home, or just my mom is home and they want the fresh breeze from the spring or summer breeze to come in, they would leave the front door open, the screen door locked. Right? So my mom gets closer, because the mesh, the screen on the screen door.
Yeah, you can see her.
You can see them, but you can see the figure, but you can't really make out everything, right? So I'm trying to figure this out. But I'm here now. It's almost like when you get into a fight. You're in it now, so there's no backing out. So she unlocks the door. I grab it to start opening it. She takes one step back. She smiles and she opens her arms wide, almost like an eagle soaring above the mountains. She says, "Welcome," and gives me a hug. That day, I realized what real love really looks like, true love. Because it's almost like no matter what you do, no matter what happens, what day of the week it is, no matter if we're in good times or bad times, you're mine. And because you're mine, I'm going to love you no matter what. And only death can separate us. That stuck with me to this day.
Now, did your father have the same response?
I don't know what my father was not in that scene. He could have been out on church business or something. I'm not sure. I don't remember him being home. I remember a story about an inmate, Jean Valjean, in the story Les Miserables. And he had gotten to the point where he went from ex-con all the way to becoming mayor of the town of Vigo. And something happened at one of his factories. And one of his managers said, "Hey, we have an issue with one of the girls. She's had a child out of wedlock, and we're just now finding out about it." Now, back in those days, that was like, you're exiled at that point. No one will hire you and things of that nature. So, which is why she kept it hidden. And he said to her, "Okay, I have to take care of something, so you deal with it." And she starts to walk away. And he does as well. But then he turns back and says, "Be as patient as you can." And I think that's the key that I always remembered with my parents, because they never quit. There were no signs of quitting with them when dealing with me, even when there was turbulence, which I was reminded of when Mikey was a teenager and there was some turbulence there. And, it's trying. If you think that having small kids at home is trying your patience and it's a lot of work, what about when they get out there and they can kind of roam the earth on their own
and make their own choices,
doing things, keeping secrets? Sometimes you don't know what they're up to, right? That is something. And then when you see the evidence of something that's wrong, and now you get pushed back, and you have like the okay pushback, something that you can tolerate. That's kids being kids, teenagers being teenagers. And then there's some of the pushback that kind of crosses the line. And week after week, it kind of piles up, right? It builds up and you become worn, right? And just at the point where I thought, well, Mikey's old enough. If he wants, at this point, he could take off. And a thought entered my mind. Essentially, your parents didn't give up on you. So who the f- are you to give up on your children? And that was it. And I knew at that point that no matter what happened, that I would have to be patient. I would have to treat every situation in my home when it came to my children with love and in love. So when my mother was dying, I got the phone call. My brother says she might not make it another 5 days or so. So I book a flight. And I remember it was a Thursday, because I flew out Friday, and I was thinking, well, since I'm supposed to go to Vegas next Friday to try to close on this deal, I said, maybe I could just fly from Florida or what have you. Because honestly, I was kind of expecting that maybe there's a way that she can pull through. This might be a false alarm. So I get to Florida. I'm there, and I see my mom there. She's laying there almost lifeless. At that point, she had round-the-clock hospice care at my sister's house. And I cannot tell you the droves of people, the people that came through that home to sit with my mother, to comfort the family, to see her and, say their last goodbyes or what have you. And I told you, come from a religious family. So as we sat around her and sang songs, prayed, preached, my aunt, Tita, Rosa, she always keeps like a mini sermon in her back pocket. And the feeling that I got while there, something there really touched my soul, probably in the same way that my soul was touched at 4 days old without me even knowing it, right? So here's a woman that gave everything, and she's laying there. She's preparing to transition. We are rejoicing, worshiping. Was very little crying. Very little crying. And we were singing songs, and I remember taking a video, and I was thinking to myself that we're sitting here sending her off in the same love she gave us, right? And I can almost imagine the heavens opening up and her in preparation for her to transition. And my mom never really moved while I was there or anything like that. And I remember one night, around the fifth night, I was driving back to the place where I was staying. It was about 45 minutes away. So I get close, but I stopped to charge the car. And my brother calls me. My brother Cano says, "Hey, listen, did you make it home yet?" I said, "No." I said, "I'm almost there, but I have to charge the car, so I have enough charge for tomorrow." He says, "Well, you might want to come back because I don't think she's going to hang in very much longer." So I charged for another maybe 15 minutes, and I turned right back around, drive 45 minutes. And when I got there, she had just passed. And we were around her for a few minutes. And then at that point, the hospice nurse had to step out, start making some phone calls. Excuse me. And it's interesting how the hospice nurse has to call another person, a supervisor has to come out, a supervisor call the authorities and all, and everyone who needs to know what's going on, because the body can't be moved legally until all that is taken care of and the sheriff department gives you the go and whatnot. So I didn't know how to feel at the time. When they pulled her out, they had pulled her on some sort of gurney type thing, and she was in the hallway or the foyer almost, and we kind of just stood around her one last time, and I remember giving her a kiss on her forehead, but I knew I was kissing her earthly body. Everything about her was already gone. And I was, there was comfort in knowing that she lived the way she lived, in her purpose, always walked in her purpose. My parents were not the type that dilly-dallied or would sit idle or in idle things or idle conversations. It was always from one thing to the next. Everything was intentional. We sat down around the dinner table, we would talk and eat and, just relate to one another when we were younger. And then my parents would go into like cleanup mode or what have you. And it was the same thing. They came to visit me here in Texas, and I remember my sister Maida was with them, and they would cook one meal, right? We all sit down and eat, talk, laugh, joke, and then as soon as everybody was done, my parents and they would go in the kitchen, they start cleaning up, and they may rest for about an hour, and then they get back in the kitchen and start preparing for lunch, right? It was always something. They did not waste time. So you got to remember, my mom being this loving, kind woman, spiritual, there was something that you really shouldn't forget. So she was Puerto Rican too, right? Or should I say she was Puerto Rican first? And so there was a level of tenacity there. My mom wasn't no joke, okay? But that tenacity. So here it is. I'm in Florida. I'm waiting for her to pass, right? She passed away. She passed away on October 22nd. Well, if you remember the story, or if you remember our conversations, Khalil passed on October 22nd, 13 years prior. So it was, to me, I took it as that same tenacity. She's laying there. I know that she was ready to go. And it's almost like she wanted to wait, almost like play a trick on me, if you will. But with a message along with it saying, hey, don't forget me. I've given you everything that I've got, but I don't want you to forget that boy. And the reason for that is because when he passed, I remember I had to recalibrate everything in my mind about my life, almost like a GPS rerouting. And I looked at my children that were still living and all the things that I needed to do, all the things that I had done and things I've been involved with, and what's important and what's not important. And I took it as her passing away on October 22nd, that she wanted to mark or she wanted to make a mark yet again on my soul, kind of saying, hey, I'll take care of him now, but you take care of those others, because you still got 6 living children. So, and thank God, my children are well-adjusted, well-rounded individuals. They're doing good. 2 of them are married. One is about to get married this year, and another is in college. And I have 2 younger ones. So it was a tough time there. But again, the only comfort there is she lived a full life. 6 months later, I'm back in Houston, and I have been communicating with a childhood friend, Wesley, and he came to visit me. Shout out to Wes. We both had plans on opening up some sort of organization that helps children. So I always want to open up a school for troubled boys or a program for troubled boys. And him and I had talked about that. So he came down and we kind of were heads down for a week, just exploring different resources and avenues that we could kind of roll this program out. And we could probably start doing some sort of collaborative effort and initiative, and then that can roll into our own separate initiatives. Not that we would stop working together. So we do all that. And so he flies back home. Then he calls me and says, hey, look, so I got the guy from DIFAS is going to call me in about an hour. So will you be available? I said, sure, just call me. So when that time comes, I'm parking at the HEB. I'm in the parking lot, and we're on a Zoom call with this gentleman. So he works for DIFAS. Remember, it's a division of CPS in New Jersey. And we were talking about what it is that we wanted to do. And I believe he was in Burlington County. That's his division. And he's pretty high up. So he asked me some questions, and he wanted to get to know a little bit more about me. So I told him. And I never lead with me being adopted or any of that. There's a lot of people that probably up until watching the first episode didn't know that. So I'm telling him about my mother and how she was recognized by the state, years and years of service. And they even would call her in to give some input on the process or anything about it to kind of help shape the program moving forward, which is big. We're talking about a woman who was not educated, not literate, right? But she had magic when it came to children and families.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, oh, wow. So then I start talking and he cuts me. I said, wait a minute, what's her name again? And I said, Carmen Maldonado. And he says, you know what? So if she played that role for that many years, I'm going to put a call into Mercer County, because once they pull her file, then that's your end, right? I mean, surely, technically, they're going to look at you like a success story, right?
Right.
So, and I got off that call, and I will tell you, I'm in the car the whole time. I never went to the store until after the car. But I'm thinking, I hung up, and I was thinking, like, so even from the grave, this woman is still blessing me. And I don't know, it's just overall as an experience that I couldn't put into words. If I can think of 1,000 words for every moment, it wouldn't be enough. That's the story of the moment that truly marked my life forever when it comes to my mom.
That's beautiful. He was 15 years old when the second moment happened. His father was driving. They were crossing from New Jersey into Pennsylvania on the Trenton Makes Bridge. Mike had found a job listing in the newspaper. It paid $532 a week. He told his father about it. His father chuckled, kept his eyes on the road, and said, "A man only needs $300 a week to take care of his family." Mike never forgot that. Not when he was making $300 a week, not when he was making $300 before lunch, and not when he was making $300 an hour. Your father said something to you on the Trenton Makes Bridge when you were 15. Tell me about that drive.
Yeah, so we were crossing the Trenton Makes Bridge, and we were going to Pennsylvania for something. And I had told him about an ad that I seen in the newspaper for a job. And it said that it paid $532 a week. And he chuckled, and in Spanish, he was essentially said, well, I hope it pays $532 a week, right? And there was a pause there for a moment. And then he said, a man only needs $300 a week to support his family. And I didn't know really what that meant. At that age, responsibility, just the idea, the concept of responsibility kind of escapes you, because you don't understand that you build everything based on that as an adult. So I never forgot that. Never. And I had gotten to the point, I remember I thought about it one year or one day, and I realized that I was making $300 before lunch, right? And with certain projects, it met the hourly rate as well. And it's not about the money, but it's about, I think my parents never knew that the seeds that they planted in me grew into a plant, then into a tree, and then it got to be wider than an oak. And I mean on the inside, like truly to get to the point where just awaken a beast in terms of life. I've taken many risks, but I take these risks because I don't want to be on my deathbed when my turn comes and regret not doing things in life and regretting what if, and if that had turned out this way, had I made a left here, right? I don't want to deal with.
So what do you think your father was trying to communicate to you?
Well, I think it was more about taking what you have and doing your absolute best and the most that you can do. It's not about the money. It's about what you have and what you do with it, right? So there are parables about, an owner or master giving talents to certain employees and to see what they would do with them. One buried his, the other multiplied his, and I forget what the other did. And when the owner came back, it said, okay, so what do you guys do with your talents? The one guy said, hey, look, I multiplied, I doubled them. You gave me 3, I got 6 now, right? The other one did something sort of the same. And the one that buried his says, well, I buried mine, right? And what he did was he took that talent from the one that buried it and gave it to the other ones that produced. So to me, it's like if you have some sort of gift or talent, you pursue it, you hone in on it, or you develop it, right? So that through the passage of time, that becomes your superpower. You leverage that. If you can grow that into other talents, then you do it. But you have to believe in yourself. And I said in one of the episodes that it's hard to believe in yourself without believing in some sort of higher power. And I began to tell you that my belief in God is not one that's based on what the church says. My belief in God is not based on what the Bible says. My belief in God is that as I was being taught what the Bible says and what it teaches, I saw my parents walk in that very same thing. There are examples in the Bible that I saw them do. I bear witness that they lived in a way that was in accordance with their belief, which was the Bible. That right there let me know that there is something there that's real, because for me, it's tangible.
Right.
I'm no longer operating with a sort of faith that's just blind. I can see it. And because I can see it, that I know I can do it, because I'm believing in everything they believed in. And even if I don't get it right, even and I'm not going to get it right. I'm going to get some right, I'm going to get some wrong. But I know that that will always be my driving force. But again, I was fortunate enough to see it. So I can touch it, taste it, and all those other things.
Your father wasn't a businessman, but you became one. How does that happen?
I think every lesson I learned, whether if it was spoken, whether if it was just watching them do how they do. My father, again, like I was saying, is, you do the most with what you have, but realizing these talents. And if, I told you I had gotten into music. So I bought many, or should I say, my father bought many instruments for me to play. And they were okay with catering to any talent that I was willing to nurture. I'll tell you something. I remember my daughter Khadija. She came home from school and she says, hey, you know what? I want to take this photography class, but I have to buy a camera and whatnot. So I asked her what sort of camera she needed. So when I look at the specs, and then later on, I look on certain websites to see how much it would cost. And this camera was going to cost, I think, almost $400. So at the time,
That's a lot.
$400 when the kids are still, younger, it would have been a bigger investment than what we usually buy them on a regular basis. So, but I went to work and I discussed it with a colleague of mine.
What did he say?
It kind of reminded me of a conversation with my father. You could take something to my dad, and let's just suppose you kind of sort of was complaining about something, but imagine them saying, hey, well, you knew that already. Like, in other words, what's next? It's nothing new. You should have been prepared for that, what have you. So I tell my colleague that my daughter's taking this photography class, and I got to go buy a camera for $400, And it's not like the issue is really the $400. The issue is more so the children don't take care of things. They set things down and they
lose
get
it
stolen.
just fast.
Yep. So he looked at me and says, well, do you want her to be in that class, or you out in the streets? Okay. I ran to the store and got that camera. See? But I think that I think with having the type of parents I had, it allowed me to also be very careful of the people I had around me. So the people around me, I can trust what they say. I don't have to like it. And there's times I don't. But it's done in love, in truth, and you can't wrestle with the truth. I can't be upset because of the fact that I don't like you giving me this sort of advice and judgment that needs to be applied at the time. Because we don't always see it. We're so close to our situations that we don't always see it. But speaking in that, speaking about, becoming angry or something like that at folks, I was never angry at my parents coming up. I don't remember one time being angry at them for taking the position that they did, especially when it kind of opposed whatever it is I wanted to do on my agenda. And I remember saying one time in a video that my parents were right, especially when they were mistaken.
What does that mean?
Well, people don't get it right. I mentioned something one time. This is a story. I must have been 17, 18. And I would go down to a program every week. And my father, I had the middle room, their bedroom was in the front. And he's walking past my door and says, "Hey, wait, you're not going to the thing today? You're supposed to be down there." And I said, "Dad, today's Tuesday." He says, "What?" He says, "Today is Wednesday." I said, "No, it's Tuesday." He says, "Man, them streets got you all messed up. You don't even know what day it is." So
which day was it?
So he walks back to his bedroom, and he had a little office in there, and he checks the calendar and he comes back. He said, "Oh yeah, today is Tuesday." Listen, now if I had other parents, I would have said like, "Yo, who's messed up now?" Right? But I couldn't do it. But what he was doing wasn't a bad thing. He actually thought it was the day. He wanted to make sure I was doing what I needed to do, which is what parents should be doing. That's their job, right? To stay on top of them.
Right.
So even mistaken, I'm not saying they were mistaken often, but even mistaken, they meant well. And that was the good thing about it. That they weren't going to lead you wrong. And then the fact that he quickly came back and corrected himself. So.
And then hoy, married 63 years ago. Gracias a Dios que nos ha permitido todo este tiempo de vivir juntos, y veamos este matrimonio. Y ver cómo mi familia, mis vecinos, y yo le doy gracias a Dios por estar con nosotros. Dios le bendiga, Dios le suerte y bendiga de mi nuevo a mi familia. Feliz año a mi chica y que tengan un viaje de regreso bueno. Dios le bendiga. Dios le bendiga.
Señor, bendiga a todos esta noche. Gracias por mirar ustedes aquí a acompañarme junto a mi esposo. Y para mí ha sido un placer estar aquí con la edad mía para que se sintiera más de libertad, porque eso hace falta, hasta que estuviéramos todos unidos. Así que yo doy gracias a cada cual y hasta aquí yo espero que todos puedan tener muchos años de vida. Que Dios no le dé cada día más fuerza para seguir adelante y que puedan estar con nosotros porque mucho esta fuerza.
Everybody say anything you believe after birthday.
Sale peinado.
No sabe nada, solo yo. Ya se echó de fuerza, que viene la noche a tocar la puerta.
¿Y dije por qué no me ha peinado?
No, siempre tú te levantas peinado.
Yo puedo hacer. Mira,
¿Qué olor?
mira, después que llenen esos tanques,
Sí.
a cierto tiempo, los van limpiando. ¿Tú conociste el cine?
Sí, sí,
¿Tú conociste el cine?
sí.
Pues el tío de Arcede estaba metido en ese tanque.